I'm going to start a video series, and this is going to be the process I went through of starting my wash. Looking at it from everything from the beginning, building the business, determining the wash, kind of covering everything. I'm going to do this in multiple parts. It won't be as technical. It'll delve into some technical, but a lot of the mechanics of building the business. I'm just gonna say a disclaimer here. I'm not a professional. This is something that I have, gone through with my own lessons learned, and things that I needed to, course correct along the way. So this isn't legal advice. You need to consult an attorney. You need to consult an accountant. I'm going to talk about what I did and my areas along the way and some of the resources and tools I've used and things along that manner. But definitely, cover your tracks and use this as a guide. But again, every situation, every location, every state, every jurisdiction is going to be unique. And it's going to be fairly in depth with some things specific to my wash, but I think that it could be beneficial to a lot of folks. So I'm going to be working on a series of videos. I'm probably going to make a playlist out of this, do an outline, kind of put them out one by one. Partly because weather-wise, we're getting better, but looking for content, making sure I can keep things going on here that keeps people interested. So that being said, we're going to start this as chapter one, and chapter one being, in my case, how I went about starting this whole venture. And there are a lot of things to consider when you're looking at going down one of these paths. You know, my business structure. When I knew I wanted to start a wash, I knew I wanted to potentially have multiple, not just one. And I wanted to utilize a business model that would let me quickly add, hopefully not remove, but remove if I needed to, entities from the business. So I went with an LLC, a single member LLC. I formed the LLC through LegalZoom. There are other entities that you can do it. You can do everything else. I just wanted a one-stop shop. It probably cost me, I think, around $600 to do. However, it covered a lot of things I didn't know I needed to do. And it did actually give me a conduit for a lawyer, which I needed later on. And I'll later on discuss the process when I got my wash because I wanted to get my lease looked over. I've had an interesting lease structure, or maybe a little non-standard. I'm a triple net. I did say lease. I'm leasing my wash. I don't own the building or the land yet. I would like to hopefully eventually purchase it, presuming my landlord is up for that. But that's, a longer term discussion. Because it's an asset they own that's tied to other businesses, and it would require divesting that from their other businesses. So we'll cover that. I formed an LLC, and it was a relatively easy process. I had to come up with a name. The name, I actually worked with ChatGPT, which has been a real wonderful resource through a lot of this, to figure out the name. And the official name that owns my wash is DJ Washco Holdings. My name is David. I've gone by DJ my whole life. One of my middle names, my father was a David. Washco, go figure, and Holdings, and that's kind of goofy, but I did because of the Holdings company. So DJ Washco Holdings LLC is my company, and I have a DBA, a doing business as, spun up underneath that of Coastal Auto Spa for this location. If I eventually spin up another, which I'm hoping to expand when things get more mature and the economy gets better and things like that, and my costs are not so exorbitant. I got Coastal Auto Spa now. Maybe I want to start a laundromat, and Coastal suds, something, but I want to have options. And having the LLC with the DBAs under it makes it easier to do that because I can have multiple DBAs rolled up under my LLC structure. But the legalities of my business are, for the most part, squared away. So I'm headquartered in Delaware. My LLC is formed in Delaware, Delaware being where we live, and it's also a very advantageous state, very good for small business and business in general. So, try not to jump around here too much on this, but I knew I wanted to form this business structure, and I did it later in the process because of the costs, because there is some some licensing and some things like that I knew I'd have to get down the road once the business got started. But I knew I wanted the structure of the business. And my background is federal contracting, 20 years now, and I do IT architecture and management. I started off as a help desk tech, and I moved up through very technical roles: network engineer, systems engineer, systems architect, and into some personnel management. I've got a fairly broad spread with things, but corporate America has been my life. And one thing that always struck me about my first company was I worked for very fanatical about their branding, and at the time it was annoying. It's like, I don't want to use a company font, I don't want to use a company color. I did. You're paying me, I'll do whatever you want. But I am very strongly, I believe I have a consistent brand. I believe in certain things like that. My company, as I wrote in my documents and in the founding things, that, probably overkill, but they say dress for the job you want, not the job you have. I want to be a bigger company than one guy with one car wash. So let's build big. So, I have a corporate color scheme. I have a corporate branding guide. I use a corporate font that I've picked. Now, the fun thing is, because it's my company, I get to do everything I want. No, it's not Comic Sans MS. It's actually called ARG, like AARGH, which is kind of funny. But I really, from the beginning, consistent email signature, consistent, everything, because I really want to present, whether I'm dealing with a customer who has emailed me or who's responded to a QR code in a bay because there's a pressure issue. Had one of those earlier. Or I'm talking to my bank and saying, hey, I need $100,000 because I want to go buy widget X for the wash. I want consistency across the way that I am dealing with the public and interfacing. Again, I'm one man, one job, one little company, but you don't have to present yourself that way. And it's not really fake it till you make it. There's a professionalism that comes with that. And I think that struck me, something I wanted to start off from the ground. So, we've got structure, we have branding, reputation being a big one. I wanted to build a reputation, no matter what service entity I have underneath DJ Washco Holdings. Customer service has always been the forefront of my jobs. My first job, we had an elevator speech that we were trained on. And it was literally, someone says, well, the company was called Terpsys. Maryland, if you're Maryland Terrapins, one of our CEO was a former athlete and was very big on, team and everything. And very Maryland, if you know anything about Maryland, they are very proud of everything Maryland. We are a unique crowd. And they had an elevator speech that was, someone would say, well, what is Terpsys? Well, we're a customer service company focused on technology. How may I help you? Again, at the time, it was pedantic and it was annoying because I was like, I just want to fix computers. I just want to go. And I was working in lab spaces at the NIH and National Cancer Institute at the time. And it was like, I was already confused about, like, I just came out of college. I was told I'd be, doing X, and why am I working in an animal facility next to mouse with a tumor the size of a baseball fixing a computer, but it was like, okay, I don't want to get too far off track here, but the customer service, but I still, mind you, 20 years later, I remember that. That's key. Self-service car washes are not a business that typically has good customer service. If I were to do a laundromat, if I were to do, I mean, I've looked at all kinds of things. So I'm like, I don't know what business in. I've looked at self-storage. I've looked at porta potties. I've looked at all these things. It's like, could I do that? Sure. How does it fit into the vision of what I want? And the vision that I want is customer service forward. So everything at my wash has a QR code on it. Everything at my wash has my 1844 number on it. I'll go into it in a later video, but I use Amazon Connect. I have an IVR, so if you call in to the wash, you get a voice response that tells you everything. Where am I at? What do I offer? Press this button if you want information on our gift cards. Press this button if you want information on our Fleet Advantage system, our Fleet Advantage program. Press this button if you're having an issue and you want to report it. Now, you press that button and it rings through to a Google Voice number that I've established that rings, my office phone here, my cell phone, my computer. You can leave a voicemail, you can text it. I'm accessible. Just because I'm not at the wash doesn't mean I'm inaccessible. And the importance for that is reputation and really grounding in the customer support. The QR codes that are on all of my systems lead to a Microsoft form, part of Office 365. I'll cover that later on as one of the tools that I use in a later video, tools of the trade or something but it's a simple feedback form. What's where are you at? Bay 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, vacuum 1, whatever, vending 1. I know based on the QR code what it is, and I get a report. I get an email right away. It goes to an Excel spreadsheet so I can track. And it's, amount of soap, pressure. There are all these options you can put in. And it gives customers an option to reach out to me. And I usually, if I'm here, during the workday, my day job has to take my priority. That's my bread and butter. Until, this company takes off, hopefully, years down the road. But hopefully not years down the road. But it's still, I'll shoot an email or I'll pick up the phone. And, usually within 5-10 minutes, it's, hey, and my emails are not boilerplate. Someone says their name is Tom. Hey, Tom, sorry that you had an issue with the pressure on Bay 1. The first thing I ask is, did you pay with card or tap or however? Did you pay with cash? Immediately up front, I'm saying, I want to get you a refund. I want to make your experience, good. And I want you to come back, and I want you to understand that just because you didn't just waste your money. I'm sorry I wasted your time. But I don't say it like that, but the email's basically, hey, I'm sorry you had a problem. How did you pay? And can you let me know what you were driving? Because I can go back and correlate with the camera footage and be like, okay, they said they were in Bay 2, but you said you're driving a silver Camry. You were actually in Bay 4. You may not know. That's fine. And, what was your problem? Say, all right, well, hey, I'm going to address this. But first off, let me get you a refund. And, did you pay with card? Pay with card? I can refund. Let me know where you were. I'll get it refunded. It might take 2 or 3 days because of the processor. It'll come back to you. If you paid with cash, I can either meet you at the wash to give you cash. I can either send you a preloaded key fob with a refund on it. A little extra. Sometimes I've done that before, extra $5 or whatever. Or I can send you a check in the mail. I've actually had to do that once or twice, handwrite a check. Fine. The point being is that customer says, okay, I'm at this self-service wash. There's nobody around, but I reached out and it's not just going to the ether. I responded. I helped the customer right away and, said, hey, I want to make this right. And I always ask for the business again. Say, look, I hope you'll come back. I'm sorry this happened. And people are overwhelmingly understanding and usually are like, wow, thanks for the fast response. I want to bring that customer service energy forward into all of my interactions because That is the stuff that people remember, and that is the stuff that brings people back. And I founded this company on that principle. Now, I've had one or two people who abuse it, and I've had to fire a customer, and that's a whole other, look, I believe I have put in good faith to make you whole and to make you happy, and you cannot be pleased. So I'm sorry that this relationship didn't work out, and walk away. And at that point, if somebody wants to go and leave me a bad Google review or whatever, I know and I can respond in kind, and I respond to every Google review. That's also important. These things that are out there, it's reputation management, and respond kindly and say, I'm sorry you experienced X, but here's what I did to fix it. And I keep receipts, and I've got my emails, I've got call logs, everything, only because I want to be able to say, look, you're going to come for me. I'm going to show that I've done everything, because I may not be able to please that customer. However, another customer might say, hey, you know what? This business owner is trying, and maybe the business owner is not being the pain here. Maybe it's the customer. And one of my first reviews I ever got was a 1 star, and I only had one bay open, and I hadn't advertised. I had the chains on all the other bays. Like, this place was just, I mean, it was barely, I'd been open like 2 weeks, and I got this really crappy review at 5 o'clock in the morning because someone came in and things were frozen up. And and the guy called it a dump and all these things, and I was like, I'm sorry that you had this experience. I'm a brand new business. I'm opening. These things take time. I'm looking forward to refunding you. And I said it in that way because it was like, people are seeing, I'll give you your money back, but also, I'm being humble and that I'm doing this on my own. And I live in an area, coastal Delaware. People are very friendly here. People tend to understand that. I'm a business owner that's trying to make it here, and they want to support that. They want to support small business, and I would hope that in a lot of other areas, I can only vouch for my area, but you have the same type of thing. So, the $5-10 I may have to give in a refund, in the grand scheme of things, if I'm having a $600-700 day, but I've made that person happy, they're going to come back, and they might even leave me a good review, versus that person's ticked off and they're going to leave a bad review and never come back. I'm money ahead to give them 5-10 whatever, refund what it costs them back. And I think that's a critical point to keep, is if you want to get ahead in this game, or if you want to make a name for yourself, be accessible, be friendly, and have some principles. So when you're building your business, start thinking about these development principles, and start thinking about your structure, and start thinking about how you want to interact with the customers, and the things you want to offer. And also you can have fun with it, not be so stiff. Part of my branding is all of my signage that I have, and I do a lot of signs where I will print, if I need to do something temporary, I'll print it on my little laser printer here, laminate it. I got a good laminator with really hard, like 5 mil laminate. So like it's a rigid sign, and slap it up on something. And it's like, one of my vacuum signs on it says, I have a gulper nozzle. If you'd like a carpet nozzle, see my friend, and point to the vacuum next to it, because I offer 2 different kinds of nozzle types. I don't now. I used to. It wasn't that popular. Again, lesson learned. People didn't like the choice, or people liked the choice, but they didn't like the one nozzle type, so they would rip the nozzle off the other and stick it in. It was a mess. I said, let's go with, look at what people are doing. So, there are things like that like because I'm not, there's a little bit of cheekiness in some of the branding, some of the things the customers interact with, the signage. They see, I'm not corporate to the point that it's very, but it's also, everything looks the same. Everything looks consistent. You don't see a scribbled down sign. I have half signs that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper turned in half, cut in half, that they're my out of order signs that I've got like 15 of them, 10, 15 of them in a box in a drawer in my office that either myself or James, my employee, if something goes down in the middle of the night or something goes down during the day, or I got to call somebody at, when the Jiffy Lube, when I used to have employees there who I would be able to call before that business went elsewhere. I would be able to say, hey, can you stick a sign on vacuum 3? It's taking people's money. Get it out of service right away, things like that. But it's also, instead of being a post-it note that says broken, it's a sign that's consistent and says, hey, sorry about this, machine's out of order, get it fixed as soon as we can, and the alternate, use another machine, whatever. But again, consistency in branding, consistency in behavior, consistency in response, and just really, just because you're a small business or you're a one-man show doesn't mean you have to act like it. Kind of a big key. So, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. I want to make sure. So I think that we're going to cover a couple things here about the LLC, and then I'm going to call this a short video, call this the short, and kind of lay the land for what I'm going to do with some others. I'm also playing some with the background here, so we're going to see how this works. This may not be something I even put up, but along with establishing the LLC, you're going to need to have a good banking partner. I use M&T. They're an East Coast bank. I don't know where all M&T is at. I think Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland. But I went in, I got established with them, opened my business checking account. I actually went into the bank, and M&T, for business accounts, you pretty much have to go in to do everything. I actually don't mind that. But I got set up with a banker, very friendly, and this was just for a business checking account. So I had an entity that was tied to my LLC that I could deal with some money that shows I'm legitimate. I'm not, oh, tell me this didn't. Okay. Yeah. That I'm sorry. My screensaver came on. That I'm not, just Joe Schmo off the street. And I looked at their lending opportunities. And, again, I'm getting ahead of myself on some other videos. But, I looked at them for funding. I looked at a lot of other areas for funding when I was trying to figure things out. But I started small. I got my little checking account. I've got my giant checkbook. I even have my pay to the order of stamp that I can for checks when they come in. Not that I get that many checks, but still, I kind of laughed at all these things. But really just getting established with that, and started looking at what other lending opportunities there might be. And that was a big step, because I knew I was going to have to find, some money to find a wash, and I wanted to know what I would be able to go and find. And this is before I even had found my wash. Again, this is where I did maybe the order a little bit different, but I established the company and then I went hunting for the wash. I could have done the other way around and may have made more sense, but I had a pretty good idea of where I wanted to be, and kind of, I wanted to be able to jump if the iron, or jump while the iron was hot. The mood struck, however you want to put it. So there were a lot of steps, just basic steps. I had formed the LLC, which I had to pay out of, because at the time it wasn't a business. I had to pay that out of my own pocket with my credit card. I put everything on one American Express that I used so I could keep all my pre-business costs, so I could account for those. So there was a cost involved with that. I had to get the bank, a little bit of funding. My first $80 deposit to open my account, I literally grabbed what cash I had in my wallet and was like, here, fed it to the ATM and made my initial deposit, started up, which is mildly irritating because to this day that deposit sticks out in QuickBooks, another tool I use, and I constantly have to go through and refile it because QuickBooks wants to know where that money came from, and I can't convince it and make it stay that money was owner funding. But and then started looking at other resources available to me. I think the next video that I'm going to do is probably going to cover such things as looking at your resources that are available to you based on your area. For instance, in my case, we had the SBDC, the Small Business S S S. It's a Delaware small business entity. I'll link them in here if you happen to be in Delaware. But most states have organizations that help small businesses answer questions, guidance, get you off your ground, look at business cases, look at things like that. And then looking at, suppliers that you can work with to build business credit, even if you're not doing much. You know, a business, an LLC, however you do it, but even if you're a single, you're whatever entity, you're nobody if you haven't purchased anything yet. The bank doesn't know if you're trustworthy. Lenders don't know if you're trustworthy. Vendors don't know if you're trustworthy. You got to get a start. The way I got started was by Net 30 accounts. Uline, there are certain companies that will report purchases to all of the credit lender, to Dun and Bradstreet, to all of the credit, Experian, everybody for business, to kind of show that, hey, this person pays on time, and they'll extend you a modicum of credit just to, get started, get your feet wet. Uline is a big one. Uline was my first one. I would say that you probably want to do some research into Uline. They have some, again, I try to keep my videos apolitical, but just do your research and see if they're a company you want to do business with. I swallowed certain aspects of my personal opinions in order to do so, but and their prices are high as a kite. However, which you can see, business purchase number one, I bought a $15 calculator that probably cost 73 cents to make and ship here, but I bought it. And I bought it on my account that they opened for me with my $1,000 credit limit. So I put this on an account, and then I paid the bill a week and a half later in full. I think I bought a pad of Post-it notes as well that I still have. I mean, I literally used this stupid little Post-it note thing it's on a little pallet. But I did this to establish some credit. And to show that, hey, I pay on time. Granger is another one. Granger's a huge supplier, and they're really, really good. Quill is another one. Quill.com, which is, they're an affiliate of Staples, I do believe, but they're more business focused. I use Quill for a lot of things. I buy my trash bags from Quill, for instance. And I buy as much stuff that will give me net 30 terms as possible, because buy it, bill it to my account, I pay it in a week or two. All right, let it cure it, but I pay it within that 2 week, within the 15 days. They report out to the credit unions. They report out, or not unions, credit bureaus, things like that. So it shows that this company is paying these things on time. And I did this early on, and it just to get established, to show, and my Paydex score and things like that. So to show that, hey, this company is, getting off on a good footing. But you've got your suppliers. There are a lot of things that you have to do, and a lot of small things to get off the ground that are simple, but can really help you. But it's kind of daunting when you lay everything out. So I'm going to try and make like an outline or something and put somewhere here, and just like a line by line of things. And I'm going to try and really narrow the focus of these videos down. So I think next time it's going to be suppliers and some of these decisions, like looking at resources, things like that, looking from building the business perspective. If you have suggestions for things that you might find beneficial, or things that you need, thoughts that have gone through your mind, or maybe I've missed the mark on something, or maybe I'm wrong and you have expertise in an area, let me know. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you like this series of videos. I'm going to continue making, like I said, I'm going to see if I can do even like a playlist and breakdown by chapters, something where I can really help. Again, it's not the exciting venue that is the car wash, but the car wash is only part of the business. The car wash is the part that's making the money, but here's where I deal with the money. That being said, I think I'm going to wrap it here, because I need to take a 5-gallon bucket full of quarters to the bank as well as take some cash to the bank that I counted from about the past week and a half. The fun part of the job, if you will, I'm going to do this on my lunch break here. I'm going to try and keep these all around 30 minutes, make them easily digestible. But like I said, if you have any feedback, any questions, comments, concerns, let me know.